Hi, I'm Arnout Hellemans, and this is SEO in 2025.
Arnout, what's your number one SEO tip for 2025?
Well, put the user first, right? It's query satisfaction. So how good are you at solving a user question? That's it.
How do you determine if you're good at solving query satisfaction?
Just start with, well, you can use session recordings, right? You can see users interact. You can measure engagement on the page. Are they scrolling or is it immediately going away? But even just Googling questions yourself and then clicking your result and other results that outrank you, do they do a better job at solving a user's, query, their question? If that's the case, do you deserve to rank? So for me, the question is pretty clear. And I've seen loads of companies where they say, well, my content is as good, but if it's generic advice and if it's already out there, then why should you be indexed? Why should you rank? No particular reason. If you have something outstanding, if you have a nice video walkthrough, that is just resonates way more. Google has a patent that they look at user, engagement or query satisfaction. So, and I think it plays a massive role. It's the only way for them to properly scale machine learning ranking.
It was interesting that you started off with session recordings. Do you use Microsoft Clarity for that?
Yep, I do. I was using Hotjar, but on a legacy payment, so it was extremely cheap. But now they raised the prices, so they wanted me to pay $2,000 a month, and I'm like, no, I can use Microsoft Clarity.
And do you get roughly the same thing from Microsoft Clarity? Because I haven't used Microsoft Clarity that much, because I used Hotjar quite a bit a few years ago, but not that much recently. What's the main difference?
That it's free.
Okay, similar kind of tool.
And Hotjar has some other features like forms and those kind of things, and user like you can questionnaires and etc. But for recordings and screen like heat maps, Clarity works perfectly.
And there's no limit to the number of recordings you can get with Clarity?
Well, there probably is. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I think you can get a clear understanding of your users if you look at, say, 100. If you create a content which is this long and the majority only gets this, you kind of know that it's not working, right?
Yeah. So for audio listeners, Arnout was just referring to just a segment of your page as opposed to the whole page.
Yeah, exactly. So if they only see like the initial page, but they don't scroll, and if a lot of your content needs scrolling to be viewed, you know that there's something wrong.
Is it easy to measure the impact of improving UX using a tool like Microsoft Clarity? Or is it partly your instinct and difficult? Yeah.
No, because Microsoft Clarity is you have to watch all the recordings, right? So if you want to properly measure that, you should use an analytics tool that looks at scroll depth and stores like events when people start scrolling, or little things like put a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Was this the answer you were looking for at the bottom of your page, right? If a lot of thumbs up happen, it's good. You can measure this. And then you can start measuring it. You can see how many people scroll all the way down. You can create all kinds of reports. So no, Microsoft Clarity is to get a grip on where you have issues. I would always use an analytics tool to measure how many people actually make it down the page or to the elements that you define as being very valuable.
That's a great metric to be aware of. So scroll tracking is something that you can obviously do in GA4. Is that the tool that you're using at the moment for that? Yeah.
Yeah, GA4, but like any analytics system, you can track if somebody scrolls to a certain depth, you can go 2/3 read or full page read. You can just build that in.
So UX, we've certainly seen through the Google API leak, can have a significant impact potentially on your SEO success. What about CRO? What kind of role does that play?
Well, in essence, CRO, in my opinion, is about removing friction. Now, removing friction is very highly correlated with creating a better user experience. And so, for instance, if you have a product page and it doesn't have all the necessary information on there, adding that information removes friction, creates a better user experience. As such, it will highly likely convert better as well, right? If you see on a product page how it can be used, you see user reviews, you see a video, how you can use it, like it takes away a lot of the friction that does normally exist in the process of buying something. I think a lot of the CRO improvements are actually UX improvements.
So it's one thing improving your UX using a tool like Clarity, but in an ideal world, you'd launch something and it would have wonderful UX to begin with. How do you go about doing that? Trying to ensure that when you launch something, the UX is a lot better than your competitors?
By looking at your competitors, right? By actually using them. So I think a lot of the answers are actually within the SERP. So if you start going through or even better, getting some of your target audience, use your competitor's website and you looking over their shoulder. Unbiased, not helping them, but seeing where they struggle, what they like, so there's a lot you can do pre-building something. Like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's already out there. So you just need to can choose and then create the ultimate. And I think having a good designer that has a clear understanding, and this is the difficult part, of data, of human behavior. So it's not just it should look great. No, it's actually about accessibility, about proper usability. And this is difficult because I think there's a lot of awesome designers out there, but there's not a lot of awesome designers that also understand user behavior, psychology behind it, and friction. But I mean, luckily I know one or two, so I usually work with them, which takes a lot of the work for me. I'll leave it with them, and then it's fine. It's tweaking afterwards.
How do you build good UX into a content strategy? Is it as simple as just really understanding the user journey beforehand, ensuring that you build content according to the appropriate part of the buyer journey that you're focusing in on, and you've got good navigation to take you to the next step on the user journey, or is there more to it than that?
Well, it needs proper research, right? If you're gonna build a piece, you need to understand what kind of questions need to be answered in this piece. And then secondly, you need to define what kind of UX elements should be in there, right? Should there be a comparison table in there? Should there be a video in there? Should there be a how-to with bullet points? So you need to understand what is the best way to convey my message. And then you can start to build all of this. Because I see a lot of people that just have one template, which fits like most of it. So they go, let's put an image here. I see so many companies use AI generated images. And I'm like, but if I can spot that, like straight up, like it also tells me you didn't put the effort in. And unless it's an article about how imagery in using AI has improved, you can do it. But so it's about all these quality metrics that all fit into the same UX and the elements on how to convey the message in the easiest. So like people don't like reading. So if you make bullet points are often a lot easier. And yet a lot of companies don't use bullet points because they think I need to put more words in. Actually, if you ask users, do you want to have words or bullet points and imagery and comparison tables? They love all of the latter, and they don't really like reading.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that relates to user satisfaction as well, because if you've got a relatively lengthy piece of content and you can perhaps summarize that piece of content at the top with bullet points and perhaps serve the user's needs by doing that, then it's not scrolling down the page is what you're looking for. You're just looking for that user to be satisfied. If that was the case, how would you measure the satisfaction of that user? I mean, for instance, do you ever have a pop-up survey that asks the user if they're satisfied that what they wanted to achieve on that particular visit has been achieved?
Potentially, and then with some kind of exit intent, but I'm not a big fan of pop-ups. So if you can't measure that, but you see a lot of people doing this and you see your rankings improve, because I think a very simple way of looking at this is, does the user do another search, yes or no? If they don't, like that is the clearest indication for a search engine that they have achieved what they set out to do. So it's not about people scrolling, it's about them not needing another search. So in the end, you might not be able to measure it, but the signal is still there. So I'm not saying that everybody should measure like a scroll depth, but just having a thumbs up, thumbs down, it just gives you an indication, because I don't think we can measure it. I think the only company that can properly measure it in this case is Google, because they own Chrome, which is a massive web browser, which has 90% market share, or 80 or whatever, but big numbers. And we are all sending our usage details to Google. So they are the only ones that can properly assess this. We always have to work through proxies.
If there's an SEO reading this, listening to this, watching this, and they work in a large organization, and there's an SEO team, there's also a UX team, how can SEO teams and UX teams generally work more effectively together?
I think it's interesting for them to look into the organizational structure, and say it more like they should all be on the same team, right? It shouldn't be like this. Like if you look at the largest new companies, Airbnb, Booking.com, Spotify, they all have teams which have UX, SEO, content. They're all part of the same team. So then it becomes we have the same goal. But I also think like it starts with having a key interest. So start talking to the UX people and saying, what are you building? Or give them insights. Like what I'm seeing is a video, or is there a way to convey this message using imagery, or I don't know, a flowchart, or what kind of elements do we have that can we build that convey our message in a better way, or that explain this solution in a better way? Could be, I don't know, something to flip through, or before and after, or something like a comparison table. So I think as an SEO, you should also give this input saying, can we do something like this? And you need to then figure out whether you can get the team on board with that. Probably that's a good one.
If an SEO is struggling for time, what should they stop doing right now so they can spend more time doing what you suggest in 2025?
Just chunking out content. If it's AI, or, well, you should not just do pure AI, but even if it's AI assisted, it's not about more. I feel it's very much about quality. So do less of more. So less just chunking out content, and just focus on
less quantity, more quality.
Less quantity, more quality.
Arnout Hellemans is a freelance SEO at Online Market Think, and you can find him over at onlinemarketthink.com. Arnout, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2025.
Thank you for having me, David.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2025, the book, over at SEOin2025.com.